combines these services to share engaging messages of community and industry knowledge with clients and followers. Jen hosts a weekly podcast, Be Seen Blogging, where she delivers website content tips in under 10 minutes and enjoys speaking on content strategy and community development. Dedicated to the WordPress community, Jen serves on the WordPress marketing team and Woman Who WP.org, a nonprofit and media dedicated to encouraging women in their WordPress journey. Give it up for Jen.
Woo! Thank you, everyone. It's such a joy for me to be here today speaking in Sacramento, California's capital. I am a Southern California native. I was born and raised in Southern California, and so I love our state. I love the heritage and being here in a place where there's so much history. It's beautiful. I know that each of you are going to be able to change your world as you blog and to make it a better place. And this topic, I wrote my blog post, Now What, will give you the tools to be able to push that blog post wherever you need it to go so that you can get the traffic that you want to your website and that you can make that change. To get started, let's define the value, the true value of a blog post. By raising hands, what do you think makes a blog post valuable? Why is it valuable? Anybody have any ideas?
Helpful content.
Helpful content. Excellent.
Current.
I'm sorry?
It might be current.
Current. Perfect. Yes. Yes.
Driving your target market to your website.
Driving your target market to your website. Excellent.
Community building.
Excellent. Community building. That's a great one. Anyone else have anything? Yes.
Addresses a pain point of your audience.
Addresses a pain point of your audience. Did you happen to be in Chris Lemons' talk yesterday? You know? Well, there you go. That's what he was talking about. It's great. Okay, well, I have a few others and some of those written down. I'm just going to go through them with you so that we make sure we cover some of the main points as far as I'm concerned. It increases your brand awareness, solidifies and enhances search engine rankings. Nobody said that. Creates engagement, creates community, provides audience segmentation. It's a place where you can share case studies, showcase proficiencies, or build authority with other websites, possibly bringing more inbound links to your own website. It shows what you are about, whether you're a company, an individual, or a product. It builds expertise and shows people your expertise. A blog organizes your own ideas and teaches you, because every time you write a blog post, you're probably doing research and you're looking for answers. Those answers can make some of the best posts. It also provides a method for audience interaction and draws in new customers, sales, partners, and affiliates and related service opportunities. And this slide image shows kind of a regional map of California and part of Nevada, and it hones in on Sacramento. That's because one of the key things that I think of when I think of a blog post is locality. It allows you to be regional, it allows you to be specific. Whereas for the most part, website pages are written for a broader audience.
Sorry. Shut up.
Sorry about that. Blog posts, however, can cover a much wider array of topics because they're distributed over time. Posts can be extremely specific or they can be expansive. So you can talk about an individual product or you can talk about an outline of 52 products and share one a year even. and then use that as your guideline to expand your content throughout the year. Your post can be an engaging interview, or it can be an analysis of a statistical report, or really anything else you need or want your readers to know. Here's a close-up of the photo of the Tower Bridge in Sacramento. The Tower Bridge was built in 1935. It replaced the M Street Bridge and was needed because the city of Sacramento had doubled in size. More people meant more traffic, and a new bridge was the answer. It served the needs of a wide array of people and connected them to their desired location. A wonder of concrete and steel, the Tower Bridge began with a layer of the foundation, and on that, the bridge was anchored. 738 feet of steel spans the length of this bridge, and that steel is connected by bolts. Together, they form a beautiful bridge that meets the needs of residents and visitors. Your website can be likened to this bridge. Every build begins with a planning phase or strategy. A framework has to be built element by element, and it all has to be connected. I want you to think of the pages of your website as the steel, the most visible component, and your blog posts as the bolts that hold them together. Like a bridge, your website is the connection between your service, product, or reputation and the people or traffic it serves. A blog post is not meant to be standalone content. It has to connect seamlessly with the other content on your site while introducing your key phrases and topics into your website. Blog posts, like the bolts, are used together, interlinking posts, creating a series or a concept that you can share on a page. A blog post can reference an overview, a technical study, or a journalistic article. Blog posts are flexible, and therefore they provide the perfect way for you to be able to interweave new concepts and terminology with existing site content. In both the bridge and the website scenario, each secure the main structure. A blog post should prompt action. Some use a blog as a journaling aid. Others use it as a marketing tool. For many, it's an information resource. Either way, your blog posts need to engage your reader and cause them to react in some way. Perhaps that action is a comment, validating your feelings or what you've written. Maybe it's a sign up to your newsletter showing you that your audience appreciates your current material. The action could also be a sale or a more direct inquiry that results with an increase in revenue. Remember, the desired action as you compose your post and provide clear ways to your audience to follow through with text boxes, colors, and forms and fonts that convert well. And be sure to test everything and measure your results before you replicate it in another post. A blog post needs to connect to an overall goal. So determine what your company or personal goals are and write them down. Strategize on how your website can help you to reach your audience and reach those goals. Create a list of topics that lead to those goals and start your research. Plan out your posts using a calendaring system that has alarms or reminders so that you know when to publish, when they're due, and so that you stay on track. If you find that the calendaring and creating an editorial calendar is too overwhelming at first, you can take a step back and think of 10 topics and write on those 10 topics. When you get through those, think of 10 more topics and just keep that cycle repeating until you feel like you have enough content to where you're starting to see more of a shape and you can strategize a little more and get that calendar going. What's most important is that you start. I've worked with people who stopped working on their blog posts because that editorial calendar stood in the way, and I'd hate to see that happen to any of you. So work to inspire your readers with those posts. Winning tactics. So keep your goals in mind and create a visual reminder that you can see every day. Far away dreams and goals become a reality as you keep them front of mind. Companies grow as success is dreamed, strategized, and implemented. And blog posts work for you once they are published, even in your sleep. Most people, when they think of internet businesses, want something that's going to work while they sleep. Well, blog posts work 24 hours a day once they're published. So they'll continue to be there for you no matter when your readers visit your website. So we're going to talk about some of those tactics that you can use to get those posts to work for you. I created a post on needsomeonetoblog.com called 45 Ways to Amplify Your Post. And that may be a good place for you to start. It's a little detailed to go through all those sections right now and talk about them because we just don't have that much time today. But we're going to go over some of the key points in the time that we do have together. Bring eyes to blog posts. Just as this photo takes your eye up to the top of the Capitol building, you need to do that with your blog. You need to bring people in to the things that you think are most important. And one way that you can do that is by adding key phrases to your content and social media posts so that search engines understand what your website and what you really are about. Pull out specific quotes and name yourself as the author and create graphics. Share those on social media. Link them to the post when you share them. Write a related post and share it with an industry publication, or if you belong to a chamber or the Rotary or some community organization. This is valuable information. If you're producing it, it means something to you, and I'm guessing it's going to mean something to a larger audience. Share the post wherever you're able to in social media and consider whether or not it makes sense to run an ad for the content. If you are going to run an ad, make sure that you've tested the content and ask for feedback from those near you or the local Starbucks. Whatever you have as a test audience, just test it out on someone before you invest any money. You can also run testing through a variety of services with A/B testing, but that, again, brings more money into it. So if you're not at that level, you're going to want to just test the people you know. Build each post into a valuable piece of content. Value is in the details. The beauty of this Capitol building is in each cornice and each architectural detail that they've added to make it look beautiful. So whether on your blog you use bullet points, flowy script, or something in between, your posts increase when you share them more and you make them look nice. I'm not necessarily talking about word count as far as your blog posts are concerned. I haven't really wanted to get into that because there's short form, there's long form, and you can do a variety of that. That's not the beauty of the post, but that is a consideration. So you want to have kind of a mix there, but you do want to go deep. Even if it's a short post, you want to give the essence of the information. We live in a world where people scan, and a quick glance at a text message, a 30-second stroll through social media, or 3 to 4 seconds glancing through a website, it's hard to capture their attention. And a beautiful image, a targeted headline, or a fascinating header can lead even disinterested viewers to read an entire post if it's written well. If you use analogies, examples, statistics, and story as you communicate, your ideas will have a better chance of being read and followed. Recognize that you are not writing for the masses, you are writing for individuals. Individuals who likely care about your specific topic, which is why they were searching it out. They're seeking to draw meaning from your posts. Be vulnerable and include video when possible, and interview those you admire. And don't be afraid to share a little of yourself on your blog, even if it's a business blog. Show your website as a resource by linking to other related topics. Social promotion is your ally. Share each blog post URL in social media and make those posts personal, like we were talking about before. You may want to explain why you wrote the piece or capture interest with a quirky fact. You can pull at heartstrings with an amazing photo that you took, or even a really great stock image. And if you break up your posts with those headers and images, it makes it easier to read and easier to identify your topic. As you attend live events and make friends, you'll find people that will help you as you want to promote your website. Enlist them as helpers. Enlist them to share your content and talk to them and ask for feedback. And when you get that feedback, listen to what they say. Newsletters give your posts wings. This is a drawbridge. It's the closest thing I could find to wings. So send a monthly newsletter highlighting topics you've written about and link it back to the original post. Even if you only have 2 people you can send it to, grandma and your uncle maybe, but build that list and just get started, because as you start this habit of sending out a newsletter, your list will grow. Make sure that your newsletter has a forwarding function so that it can be shared. And write on related topics or other websites and then link back to that blog post, as I said before, so that you provide that opportunity for visitors to come to your website. One of my favorite stories came from a client who we create a monthly newsletter for. The newsletter is relatively standard. It has a gorgeous header photo, and then the client's photo and name, and then her information. It's an event calendar, so it has events listed for the entire month in her area. It's about a 12-mile radius that we include in that. And it is a newsletter that resonates well with her audience. People open it, they like it. Well, one day, my client was walking across the street. She happens to be a real estate agent, and she was in town, and someone yelled out her name, and she turned, and they ran up to her and said, "I read your blog." And then they told her the reason they did was because they got her newsletter, and they were always looking for the current events. And since we use the events in the newsletter and also use it on the blog, it was something that drew them in. And so every month she checked that as her resource for what's going on in the community. And it actually ended up being that woman needed to sell her home. And so my client was able to get a listing from this person who was reading her newsletter. So they do work. And the reason the woman came to her was because she saw her as the authority in her community, the authority in her industry. And that's something that everyone can do, because a consistent newsletter creates credibility. Establish connections and gather influencers with guest posts. So guest posts can be a valuable tool because they allow you additional site content without you having to do the research, and they also show that other industry pros value you. They can bring you a new audience if you're writing, and they can help you to build traffic to your website. And they can also bring you a new audience because they're bringing the audience from the person who you're having guest post. Each post has to contribute something worthwhile to your site. It needs to be relevant and something that your consumers are going to want to read. You can't just exchange posts and links and call it a day. Guest posts hosted on your site should be from writers that you admire and seek out. The posts need to be written specifically for your blog and deliver on that requested topic, and they can't be published anywhere else. You want to give this to your audience. That's the whole point behind doing that guest post. If you are the one writing the guest post, then you need to research the site first that has requested one to make sure that it really does align with your business strategy. Ask yourself, would posting to this site build my reputation, or would it be better to release this content on my own website? And maybe even an alternate source. Once you feel confident in your choice, create the best possible blog post, working within any guidelines that the website owner gives you, and see if it's possible to include a relevant link either to your author profile or back to your website, or both. And then if you include images, ask the site owner if you can watermark those images, so that way they can still give you credit if someone comes across them. How can you repurpose blog posts? I think this is one of the reasons that I'm here today, is to kind of tell you about some of the things that we do to extend those blog posts. One of the things that we do is we use them in page content. And what we'll do is if there are some blog posts that really have some good information and we find that they're getting a lot of traffic, then we will look back through the page and say, how can we bring this, the feeling or the voice or the information of this post is obviously relevant to our readers. How can we bring that into that page and make that page better so that it's more sticky? Another thing that we do is white papers. And when you create a white paper, it can be a daunting task because it's not 500, 1,500 words. It's pages and pages of information. So sometimes an easy way to get started on this is to look through your website and pull some of your old blog posts that have to do with the topic, and then provide the additional information and rewrite it all together. It's almost like using your drafts, only this is your published material. Another thing that you can do is podcasts. And podcasts have been valuable to me. I started the Be Seen Blogging podcast, and that has just been kind of a fun thing to do. And you can do it by reusing your blog posts, or by doing your podcast and then transcribing that and turning it into a blog post so you can give yourself new content with it. One of the other things that we've been doing for about 3 years is converting blogs into books. So if you've been blogging for 4 years, you likely have at least a 125-page book on your website. Now, you're not going to copy that directly in and make that into the book. However, you can take those blog posts, put them all together, and then look through and see how you can segue them once you've categorized them into different topics. And that ends up being a chapter. You might have 8 categories and find that suddenly you have 8 chapters, and you need to do an intro and a conclusion, and you have a book that you can publish on CreateSpace, which allows you to get published on Amazon with a paperback. And there's much, much more that you can do. But those are just some things that we're currently doing with blog posts to make them more valuable to our clients and to make them more valuable for us as a company. I'm Jen Miller, and I can be reached on LinkedIn and Twitter at JenBlogsForYou or at needsomeonetoblog.com. So thank you, Sacramento.
Yay!
Here for your questions. Oh.
It's a camera.
Okay, that's not something
I can adjust it.
It's JenBlogsForYou. Thank you. Did that work? It's a U at the end. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Jen. Welcome to Sacramento.
Hi, thank you.
My question is regardless to the final part you expressed on the book, like something we could think ahead. But since the blog seems to be more dynamic, like photos and videos and perhaps audio, how do you will recommend those aspects to be framed for future things? Because, you know, the book can print and say audio play, but it's in the book. So how do you kind of like...
Right. Okay, so it depends on what type of book you're doing and your topic, right? For real estate agents, a lot of times we're writing about events, and so that can be turned into a travel guide. For somebody who is maybe writing on leadership topics, the blog post can be converted into chapters based on those different topics. If you're primarily visual, I have a friend who is an artist, and he kind of does comic books, and so we publish those. You can do those on CreateSpace too. For video, I think you're looking more at something like the Kindle format, something where you can actually, you know, I don't even know if they let you play video. I haven't actually worked with that, but because we're mainly textual based. So, but good question. I'll have to look into it.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for your presentation. I really liked it. I am also a journalist. I'm actually transitioning into a communications role at a nonprofit. And I know that I write well, and I know a lot of different how-tos, you know, when it comes to like social media. But at the same time, I'm still nervous about, you know, doing this writing more for, you know, communications or marketing kind of realm. And I was just wondering if you had any advice for success.
Yes. Okay, so, you know, people talk about writer's block, right? My advice is just jump in. Even if it's bad, just get started. And then you can always self-edit later. A lot of people try to edit as they write, and that does not get the content written. But if you want, when you work for a nonprofit or an agency, you need to learn to write fast. And part of writing fast is just getting it out there and then going back and cleaning it up, or having someone else take a look at it. So that's back. You know, when you were a journalist, you didn't have the luxury of 3 weeks to write a post, right? You had to just sit there and get it out, even if you only heard about it 15 minutes ago and you needed to get it out by, you know, in 30. So you just have to get back in that mindset and push yourself a little. And once you've been doing it for a while, it'll become second nature again.
The one in front.
As a new blogger, how do you generate traffic? How do you find people to come to your...
So there are a couple of ways that I mentioned in the talk. You know, social media posts, sharing the URL, which is what you see in the browser, is a great way to get people to see it, because then they usually, depending on your website, it will show kind of a picture of what your featured image is, and then have a little description. Do you have a current website now?
It's not a website now. I have a blog. I have a Word.
Okay,
blog.
good. So you have a blog, so you can share. Okay. So another thing you can do, especially if you're on the WordPress.com, right, is you can comment on other people's blogs, and that will let them know you exist, and they'll probably come back because they share back and forth on there. People go all over the place. And you can also just start calling up friends. You know, say, hey, will you check out this blog post? Give me some feedback. They may share it with someone else because they like what you wrote. So that's and then once you start getting people to sign up, I would say just putting a sign up form on your posts, or at least in the sidebar, so that people can sign up to subscribe to your blog. And that way they can share those posts, or you can start to build your list up so that in a year you'll have people you can directly talk to.
Hi, thank you again for coming and giving this wonderful talk. I was wondering if you had any recommendations for kind of managing all of this content, like scheduling, or because it seems like you can basically take one post and spiral it out into a bunch of other things.
Yes, well you can, but like I said, making that 10, like a list of 10 and starting there, or putting together a calendar, like thinking about the 5 things that you want to focus on your blog, and then what can I write for this, and kind of treeing out like with a flow chart is a good way. There are lots of tools that you can use as well. My company, we have a lot of content passing through, and so we actually use Google Apps, and every piece of content is shared so that the editor, the writer, me, everybody gets to see what is being processed and what is being written, and then that way we can all provide feedback as needed. So how could you organize it as an individual? I would say, a task list might even be just like, you want to break it down and make it simple for you in the beginning, and then as you grow, you can grow on to look at the tools and everything. The categories on your blog help to let you know what you should write next.
Yes, our organization has a newsletter that we still do. We print it, and then for those who accept it by email, we send it by email, and then we post a PDF on our website. But I'm wondering, is there a better way to put the newsletter on the website? Is there a plug-in specifically for, how do you do your newsletter on your website?
You don't want a newsletter on your website.
We don't put the newsletter on this particular website, but I do work with some nonprofits who like to have their newsletters done, and we just use
MailChimp?
No, well, we publish it. They're not using MailChimp; they're using a different. But MailChimp does allow you to have it online. And then you could just post the link if you were using a tool like that. But if you're trying to just keep everything on the website, you could embed it. But what people are suggesting, I'm hearing all kinds of comments out here, is that you use whatever your email provider is. Typically, they give you a link when it goes out, unless are you sending it through like Gmail or something? Or
Just do regular email.
Regular email, okay. So there's a service called MailChimp. There's actually a bunch of services like it, but that one is pretty easy for people to use, and it might be a really good suggestion because then instead of putting the whole PDF on your site, you can put a link to each month, and MailChimp will host it for you, so you can send people there. You're on?
I wrote for about 5 years and had a pretty healthy blog following, and then we had a family crisis that kind of took me out for about 8 months. So what would be your advice for the best way to jumpstart kind of a hard reset on that?
Tell your story. Tell your story. Just come back in and say, had a family crisis, but I'm so glad to be able to have time in my life to come back to this. If you're continuing in the same type of content, if you're writing about the same topic. If you're going to totally switch, then just do a new website and get new followers and all that. But people understand life, We all have things that come up and that throw us off course. And that vulnerability I mentioned, that really helps your audience to connect even better with you. You don't have to tell them all the details, but you can. Anyone else?
Hi, thank you for coming today. I just had a quick question. How long does it, or how much time do you spend on the podcast when you put those things together?
Okay, so I'm still a newbie at podcasting. I only started this year, and I would say that typically it takes me about 30 to 40 minutes to put together the outline of what I want to say, and then the recording of it is the fastest part, because my podcast, I think smart. I chose to make it under 10 minutes. So that doesn't take that long. I don't really go through and edit it because that's just more time consuming, and people like the authenticity, and so I just let it roll. It takes probably 5 minutes to upload it to the tool that I use to push it out to iTunes and Google Play. So I would say each episode takes me an hour to an hour and a half. And that's just because I'm slow. I'm sure there are lots of ways to automate it, but I have done it quicker on days when I needed to, but for the most part, I like to put a little finesse into it, and that's what it takes.
I would just want to, I'm so sorry.
We're recording that. We're recording all that.
You're right.
I just want to piggyback on that, and I do have a question for you, but I'm a podcast producer, and to follow what she's saying, it's 100% dependent on how long your episodes are, 100%. Because then if you outsource, if you don't, I mean, there's so many factors. But yeah, so don't, even though you have a very short show, like this is your stage, not mine. But I just wanted to just for someone to say it's an hour and a half for a 10-minute show is probably actually pretty reasonable.
Oh.
As far as the length of it, you know. So it really depends. And my question for you is, someone was mentioning for beginning bloggers, what are some tips that you would have to drive that traffic? So if someone's been around for a bit, didn't start as it's ourselves. We've been podcasting and producing for over 4 years. And we have, a great following, we have sponsors contacting us, all this great stuff, but we're not a blog per se. We had to have that web presence as a place to put our show notes. So we are blogging, even though we didn't enter into this sphere as bloggers per se. So we're that's why I'm here. So we're kind of coming at it, not backwards, but in our own fashion. So my question is, what are some ways that even though we have a following, our content is pretty much audio, although we do have the web presence. What would you suggest to people who kind of came in that backward fashion?
Okay. Are your podcasts currently transcribed?
They don't. That's so funny you asked that. I just spoke with the lawyer outside. They are not. We want to be more accommodating and to do that, but because our shows are average 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and they're weekly. So that is, to do a good transcription is not cheap. Right. And so at this point, we have over 200 episodes. To go back, at this point, we cannot, but we do want to.
Okay, I would start now.
Okay.
And just do as many as you can a week till you have that backlog, because that's going to bring you new followers, because all the terms, you're just naturally mentioning it when you do the podcast, right? And so when those are in text form, then Google's going to be able to read them, search engines will come to you, it'll all be great. So that's step one. But the other thing is, if you're putting them on a blog, which I don't know where you're housing them right now, I don't know if you're housing them in a website, or if...
the content? Our show notes are on WordPress. Okay. But we're on WordPress site.org. But our audio host is audio and video are huge, obviously, huge chunks of change. So that's on our audio host, Audible.
Okay. So on your website, you should check all your meta descriptions and tags and titles. Make sure they accurately describe the podcasts that are already on there, so that you're able to get people through search engines that way. And then you already have your followers, so just work on that base. Remind people of past podcasts. Send out a newsletter.
We're actually on our plate to do newsletters and something like Meet Edgar for social.
Perfect.
For evergreen. Sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.